lamentations, exhortations, outbursts, and meltdowns. This has been the hallmark of Trump's messaging to India. But Prime Minister Modi keeps calm and measured. This is a display of gracious diplomacy against tantrum diplomacy. And it's paying off. So what is unfolding in this trade spat between India and the US now? I am Shubhangi Sharma and you're watching Fine Point. Let's dive in. There have been hurried back-channel talks, and it seems like India's patience has paid off. While negotiations at one point broke down quite publicly, they are back on track. President Trump posted what read as a major reconciliatory message. He announced that India and the US are continuing the trade talks. He said, and I quote, "I look forward to meeting my very good friend Prime Minister Modi in the upcoming weeks. I feel like there will be no difficulty in coming to a successful conclusion for both our great countries." Prime Minister Modi responded to this public message, reciprocating his willingness to speak to Trump. He wrote, and I quote, "India and the US are close friends and natural partners. I am confident that our trade negotiations will pave the way for unlocking the limitless India-US partnership. Our teams are working to conclude these sessions at the earliest. I am also looking forward to speaking with President Trump." So are the two leaders' personal differences finally behind us? It appears that the appointment of a new US ambassador, Sergio Gore, to India, a close aide of Trump, and India's renewed lobbying efforts, keeping with US tradition, helmed by Jason Miller, the founder of Getter and a consistent Trump ally, have begun to mend a broken political bond. But how did we get here? This progress comes in the backdrop of intense drama, and that needs to be discussed. When Donald Trump speaks, it often leaves governments scrambling to make sense of his tone. Over the past week, India has been on the receiving end of a whiplash of rhetoric. On one hand, Trump lashed out, claiming that India and Russia are lost to China, while his allies like Howard Lutnick confidently predicted that Prime Minister Modi in India would soon come to the table and say sorry. On the other hand, Trump softened within hours, insisting that he did not think India had been lost, and he went on to say, and I quote, "India and the US have a special relationship. I'll always be friends with Modi. He is great."
I always will. I'll always be friends with Modi. He's great. Prime Minister, he's great. I'll always be friends, but I just don't like what he's doing at this particular moment. But India and the United States have a special relationship. There's nothing to worry about.
Focus on the words, the India-US relationship was a special one and that there was nothing to worry about. This was seen as a walkback of sorts and an icebreaker with Prime Minister Modi. As a dramatic lament turned into praise, it drew a rare public response from Prime Minister Modi. This is what he said on X, and I quote, "Deeply appreciate and fully reciprocate President Trump's sentiments and positive assessment of our ties." He also called the India-US relations a very positive and forward-looking, comprehensive and global strategic partnership. It was a gracious gesture in line with India's policy so far, ignoring the negatives, acknowledging the positives, and signaling India's intent to keep channels open despite Trump's volatility and recklessness. Trump's back and forth is not new. He has a habit of tearing down allies in one breath and praising them in the next. But this walkback came in the midst of widespread backlash against his policy to antagonize India. Moreover, the US economy is slowing, job numbers are weakening, inflation is climbing, and Trump's tariff strategy faces mounting legal challenges. In the midst of this, foreign policy blunders only make things worse. Meanwhile, India has played its cards carefully. Figures like Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal have maintained a tone of optimism. In a News 18 interview, Goyal insisted that the relationship was resilient, stressing the need to keep negotiations alive. This refusal to escalate has kept India on the moral high ground and avoided the trap of tit-for-tat rhetoric that could have worsened the rupture. That said, this is only an early icebreaker, and the Trump administration continues to maintain pressure on India. The standoff with India continues, and the threats have entered the realm of services trade, outsourcing H-1B visas and IT work. MAGA influencers like Laura Loomer have claimed that the Trump administration is considering blocking US IT companies from outsourcing to Indian firms. His advisor, Peter Navarro, has been especially combative, going so far as to accuse Indians of using social media to spread propaganda while railing against outsourcing and Indian workers. But here's the fact. The services trade is tipped in favor of the US, not India. According to the US Trade Representative's own numbers, in 2024, the total US-India services trade stood at $83.4 billion. The US here exported $41.8 billion worth of services to India, while imports from India totaled about $41.6 billion, leaving the US with a modest $102 million surplus. Now, US services exports to India comprise everything from software licensing to consulting and financial services, which outweigh imports from India. American tech and financial giants earn heavily from their operations in India, which has become a hub for global capability centers. Google, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs all have deep investments in India's talent pool. Targeting services, therefore, is a double-edged sword. Moreover, if Trump moves to block outsourcing, India has options. It could revisit its equalization levy, a digital services tax it rolled back amid negotiations with Washington earlier this year. India could also press harder at the WTO, where there is a moratorium on digital services taxation. Bottom line, the idea that India takes more than it gives in services is simply not supported by the numbers. Read the larger trend. MAGA's aggressive and racist rhetoric has begun to infect the India-US relationship. For many of Trump's supporters, India is now enemy number one. The danger is that this hateful rhetoric could influence decision-making in the White House, further irrationalizing Trump's policies and undermining the foundations of India-US ties. None of it will make sense, yet it will hurt both nations in the long run and make India especially wary of the United States, a skepticism that has already taken root. In this storm, Modi's reaction stands out. By responding only to the positive remarks and ignoring the hostile ones, he set a tone of statesmanship. He reinforced personal rapport with Trump while leaving the contentious issues, tariffs, outsourcing, sanctions, on the negotiating table. Moreover, the messaging runs deeper. Prime Minister Modi skipped one BRICS trade meeting that included Putin and Xi. He also skipped the military parade in China that came right after the SEO summit. This was read as a message that India is not entirely on the other camp. India's External Affairs Minister, though, at the BRICS trade meeting, made sure to make swipes at trade weaponization, calling for open trade at the meeting. This demonstrated that India's engagements are strategic, not emotional. The same applies here. India is neither overreacting to Trump's swings nor yielding to them, and perhaps that's why Team Trump is losing the plot even faster, and people like Navarro are having regular meltdowns. So what's the road ahead? The India-US partnership has weathered shocks before. What makes the present episode delicate is the confluence of domestic US politics, economic strain, and MAGA's ideological hostility toward globalization, where India is an easy scapegoat. For India, the task is clear. Keep the diplomatic channels open, leverage its strong services position, and continue diversifying its economy. For the US, the risk is greater. Overplaying the India card at home may erode the very strategic partnership it needs abroad.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.